Hello and welcome everyone to another Comic Movie Marks video.
Woo! What a week for DC News. We are breaking it all down.
The beautiful lie that is the DC News. Let's talk about some quick things that came out. Joe Manganiello drops more information about the original Ben Affleck Batman script. We're gonna go back and piece all this together. We'll start back at the very beginning when we actually found out that the original Affleck script was actually put together and very cohesive. In September of 2018, Jay Oliva says, the original Affleck script was the best Batman script I've ever read. Ben had a kick-ass story and I believe that the audience and fans would have loved it.
Then cinematographer Robert Richardson shared some additional details on the script.
How far down the road on Ben's Batman did you get? Did you have a script? Were you working on?
There was a script, but not a loved script.
Got it.
There was a lot of work that he was doing to it. He was trying to change it.
Well, were there reference points? I'm just curious, like for what the look of that film would have been to differentiate it from previous Batman films.
Well, he was going more into the insanity aspects. So I think you would have seen something a little darker than what we've seen in the past, and more into the individual, who's inside Batman.
Right.
What element may be sane and what element actually may not be sane. So he was entering into a little more of the Arkham. It's like, he's going into where you keep everyone who's bad and everyone that's shifted and Batman. So that whole aspect was was very fascinating.
Yeah.
It was to go to the darker side of Batman.
Yeah, I'm a comic book geek, as you can imagine. Yeah. We've never really seen Arkham Asylum.
No, and that's where we were going.
Shit.
So those are the original takes that we've had so far on the original Ben Affleck Batman script. It's going to be dark. It was a kick-ass story, and the fans were going to love it. And we all knew that Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke was going to be the main antagonist throughout it. Recently, in many interviews, Joe Manganiello actually went into detail about how Deathstroke was going to destroy Bruce Wayne's sanity.
Manganiello stated it was a really dark story in which Deathstroke was like a shark or a horror movie villain that was dismantling Bruce's life from the inside out. It was a systematic thing. He killed everyone close to Bruce and destroyed his life to try to make him suffer because he felt that Bruce was responsible for something that happened to him. And this almost also kind of confirms the rumor that this movie was gonna kind of be like the Arkham games a little bit. Richardson's quote where he talks about entering a little bit more of Arkham, and then Joe Manganiello talking about just being like kind of a horror villain. It's very similar to the Arkham games, which that was rumored for a long time.
This brings in many aspects too, when he talks about destroying all facets of Bruce Wayne's life within Batman's reality and Bruce Wayne's reality. And all I can picture is, does that mean Jim Gordon would die? Does that mean Alfred would die? Would he systematically dismantle everything that Bruce cherishes at all? Manganiello also talks about in the sequence when Manganiello shot with Snyder during principal photography in 2016, the Dastardly duo discussed what to do about Batman, thus setting the gears of Slade's master plan in motion. When Affleck stepped away from directing the Batman the following January, and Joss Whedon replaced Snyder as Justice League's director a few months after that, the actor assumed that the scene was a goner and put Slade in his rear view. Then in the run-up of the movie's theatrical release in fall of 2017, he found out that the scene was still in the picture, but it teased a completely different follow-up. I thought that scene was gone, but producer John Berg called me up and said, we've reworked the scene and put it back in. Manganiello remembers, I was surprised as anybody. Instead of the Batman, the Lex/Slade encounter now laid out the groundwork for the second Justice League film, though not necessarily the one Snyder had planned.
You fucking cocksuckers.
So rather than reshoot the entire sequence, the filmmakers opted to rewrite Eisenberg's side of the conversation. They reshot all of Jesse's dialogue to tease Justice League Part 2, which was going to be about the Injustice League, Manganiello says. For the record, Snyder intended to feature the alien Darkseid as the primary villain in his Justice League two-parter. Quote, all of that dialogue was about Batman originally, and it was changed to the lines, shouldn't we have a league of our own?
Which confirms what we've been talking about for a while. That was the change. That was the big rewrite that they felt was necessary for Justice League. Another thing that was confirmed by Joe Manganiello was the rumored standalone Deathstroke movie was actually something real. It was tangible. Gareth Edwards was helmed to do the solo film, but once Snyder and Affleck departed their respective projects, Manganiello's Deathstroke fell by the wayside. It also says, and with Zack, it wasn't like I was touchdown dancing. I was just like, okay, I'm actually going to step back into this armor again 4 years later. How can I improve upon it? How can I maybe set the table for some future adventures? So there's some Easter eggs involved with my return, and we definitely snuck some things in this time.
Manganiello continues, there's a reason for the mohawk. I've had a lot of time to think about the character and work on the character for these various other incarnations that never happened. So there was a bit of coitus interruptus for 4 years. Laughs. But it was fun to be back, and it was fun to see Zack again. Putting that armor on again was just so awesome.
Just hook it to my veins!
Recently, Patty Jenkins did an interview with CinemaBlend's Sean O'Connell, and a couple cool little aspects came about. One of the people on the panel asked her about a post-credit scene because in the early screening that he saw, there was no post-credit scene.
Did what I am now trained to do, which is sit through the credits and wait for a post-credit scene, to which there was not one. So I was curious, is it one of the, because sometimes, when we get to see a movie early, when we would do the junkets and stuff,
yes,
it just wouldn't be included. Is there going to be one in theaters? And so there is, and we just didn't get it.
Yes.
So what is it?
Exactly.
Is that a decision ahead of time? Like, okay, the press is getting movie ahead of time. They're getting plenty. They don't need to see let the general audiences have something.
Yeah, let that be something to save for the audience. Just for God forbid somebody writes about it, you're like,
sure,
well, then what fun was it?
Sure.
Now we should have just attached it to the end of the movie. Yeah.
But it'll be on the streaming version or just the theater version?
Both.
So it's going to be essentially a surprise for the fans. It's going to be interesting what this is going to set up for future projects, especially when you get farther in this interview.
It does also sound like maybe DC/Warner Brothers is not going to completely shy away from the post-credit scenes. That's typically a Marvel move, but we've seen it used a couple times in movies like Shazam, and it sounds like there's going to be a post-credit, potentially setting up something else with Wonder Woman 84 as well.
For those that don't know, in Wonder Woman 1984, Hans Zimmer will be composing the score. They will be using Batman vs. Superman's Beautiful Lie in Wonder Woman 84.
That was the BvS score that popped in there at one point as well, which I loved. And again, that's like from because I'm a huge Snyder fan. I love Man of Steel. I love Batman vs. Superman, the unrated cut as well. But dropping that in like that, because that's from the opening of BvS and kind of Batman's theme as well. So talk about using that specifically too.
Same thing. We cut to it when we were editing, and then same thing where Hans was like, "But I wrote that song for this universe. So why aren't we using it?" That's what you do with themes. He's like, themes and things you can change. Why? Let's just use it. And so same thing where it was so perfect and we cut to the rhythm of it exactly. So then it was just, it was great. It was true. It's like, yeah, that's what we're the DC universe. We should reuse great themes.
Something that I thought was kind of cool is the conversation that Patty Jenkins talks about with Zimmer in terms of, hey, we're the DC universe. We might as well use this. And he was referencing the score that he wrote in BvS as almost interchangeable, which is awesome. It's telling you all of these movies are playing in the same universe. They can play off of each other and utilize the same score.
Slow motion, Steve Trevor death scene confirmed.
Hey, Zack Snyder. It's a 7-minute segment. Move it along.
Sean O'Connell asked Patty Jenkins a question that many have wondered. What did she think of Justice League?
Yeah.
Knowing what happened on Justice League, did you even go back and take a look at the theatrical cut to see how Gal was handled in that to make this match at all? Or do you really just think it's in universe with yours?
The Justice League?
The one that hit theaters.
No, I think that all of us DC directors tossed that out just as much as the fans did. But also I felt that version contradicted my first movie in many ways, and this current movie, which I was already in production on. So then what are you going to do? I was like, you would have to play ball in both directions in order for that to work. So the only thing I've done and tried to always do is when I knew when Zack was doing Justice League sort of where she ends up. And so I always tried, like I didn't change her suit because I never want to contradict. I don't want to contradict his films, you know, but yet I have to have my own films, and he's been very supportive of that. And so I think that that Justice League was kind of an outlier, because I don't know, they were trying to turn one thing into kind of another. And so then it becomes like, I don't recognize half these characters. I'm not sure what's going on.
So as if the conversation with her and Zimmer wasn't enough, she's now basically totally discrediting Justice League, essentially saying we've tossed that out just as much as the fans did, and fuck that shit.
Which I would love to hear what James Wan and David F. Sandberg, I'm curious if they all have a similar perspective that, you know, that just didn't happen. No one really gives a shit about this movie, just like the fans. It's very telling that the directors in your universe don't even give a shit about the one movie that you tried to force out. Alter and change as much as possible is probably the most forgettable, shittiest fucking comic book movies since Batman and Robin.
My favorite quote that Jenkins says is, "I don't recognize half of these characters. I'm not even sure what's going on."
Of course, she talked about a lot of things contradict what was done in the original Wonder Woman, and also that's even in Wonder Woman 84. It just kind of really puts that exclamation point on how shitty Justice League truly is. Another question brought up to her was about the future of Wonder Woman. What will be next in a Wonder Woman 3?
Have you started at all thinking about what the third film would be? And are you more interested in telling stories of Diana before she meets up with the rest of the gang, like 1984? Or would there ever be a story that's hers post all of that?
You know, it's interesting. So I actually came up with a story, and Jeff Johns and I beat out an entire story for Wonder Woman 3 that we were super fired up about. But I've never felt this way before as much as I do now. I sort of, I don't think I'm doing it next.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
That's pretty telling, because what we found out recently that Patty Jenkins is going over to Disney to do a Star Wars movie.
New world order.
This is the new world order of cinema, brother.
Gentlemen, which brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
Zack Snyder announced today that he was over at CO3 Productions with Stefan working on remastering Batman vs. Superman for IMAX. He'll also be taking away the guns and replacing them with walkie-talkies, adding Ewoks in the background, and making sure that Thomas Wayne punched first.
So with everything on Vero, anytime Zack Snyder posts something, there's usually questions in the comments. One fan says, "Boss, when can we expect it to be released?" Zack Snyder responds, "I don't know, but I would imagine before Justice League."
Another one where somebody just said, what? With 4 question marks, so you know they're serious. He just responded, "It's crazy, I forgot how much was cropped out." Another person said, "Please, no 4x3. Snyder says 4x3 rocks, don't be a sheep, you fucknut.
Sharks are winners, and they don't look back, because they don't have necks. Necks are for sheep."
A fan asks, "Is this going to be a home release at some point or HBO?" And Snyder says, "I don't know, but I would imagine both." So not necessarily just for the theaters, just for home release, but possibly on HBO Max as well.
Also in his caption, he said, "I think you're gonna see a bit more," which with Snyder could mean about 5,000 different possibilities. Obviously with IMAX, it expands our view. And we're going more vertically now, so we can see. And he even uses the Wayne death scene to show as an example, showing the cropped version and the new remastered version. Now, also, does that mean that we might get a couple extra scenes put in? Could we have the longer, more super duper ultimate cut of BvS? Or is it just clearly visually that's going to be changed? Even the color grading is going to be changed slightly. He confirmed that as well in the comments. Release the 214 BvS cut, damn it.
We have just lost cabin pressure.
So that will sum up our little episode here, talking about all the most recent DC news.
Thank you everyone who's been following us and supporting us. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We greatly appreciate it. We have a website, the link will be in the description below, where you can cop some lit comic movie Marks gear just in time for the holidays. If for some reason you want to support these two jackasses, we have a Patreon and a YouTube membership. We greatly appreciate everyone who supports us on there.
In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.